Hey, welcome back to the Trevor Theismann Show. We've got a good show for you. We're talking NCAA finals. What a great game it was. Injuries, post-rehab type of protocols for elderly folks like my brother. He just had a birthday. He's nearly 50, I think. 50 now? Is that what it is?
I mean, if we're going to skip like 10 years.
I'm just saying you're looking old. No?
I feel older now.
NCAA tournament, the Epcot, or what's his name, Boycott, or Hepcot, or how do you say his name?
Honeycutt?
Honeycutt?
I'm
not sure that we're really doing any justice, but he rolls his ankle in the Final Four, comes back to the game, and at the end of the game, it looks like he blew it out.
Yeah, it was. So we were watching it, and it fully just looked like the ankle gave way. Like it's done. It hung it up, and I didn't realize, so I didn't watch the previous game when he actually injured it.
Oh, yeah, it was dirty. He
Right.
couldn't even put any weight on it.
Right, so I watched it this time. I was like, man, that is a really like young person to have their ankle just stop.
Losing him was, I don't know if it was detrimental to the complete end of the game. It was pretty close to the end. They would have been hucking up threes at the point total that they were at and what they had to overcome. But as many rebounds as that dude brought down, he was a big loss for North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I would, like you're saying, I wouldn't say that he changed their maybe attack strategy, but he definitely changed their like recovery strategy.
Sure, offensive rebound, get 2 chances for a three-pointer. You might change the whole scope of things, but I can't believe that deficit. You know, when they come out, North Carolina looks like they're going to stomp them. Complete domination. The guards for Kansas didn't seem like they were doing much throughout the whole first half, and then all of a sudden, North Carolina had no answer whatsoever for their strategy in the second half.
It was no pacing. In the very beginning, it felt like they were just playing, I don't want to say like playing a normal game, but Kansas's attack was like, we run you sick. And now that you're sick, we run all over you, which in the second half you saw. I mean, the guy said that he got hit in the stomach, and that's why he had to go out for a little bit. But dude looked exactly like I look when I've run my tail off too hard and I'm ready to just throw up.
I haven't seen someone yak on the floor in quite some time, but their pace was through the roof.
Exactly. And you saw North Carolina was trying to match that pace, and they'd run right back down and try and huck up another shot and hope for offensive rebound or just make the shot.
Right.
And it just wasn't landing. And so Kansas would run right straight back down. And then that back and forth just was not going North Carolina's way.
I was pretty shocked, you know, when you looked at their pace in the second half. It really looked like they were taking the punch. They were getting momentum. Basketball's a game of runs, and they just never recovered from that run. After they came and they got the score close, I don't know if they just kind of clocked out as if they were defeated, but there wasn't a whole lot of fight left once they tied up the ball game, and they were completely dominating North Carolina in the second half.
Well, and so I don't like watching basketball most of the time because the last
That's a shame. That's
I know.
a shame.
Well, the last minute or so, especially in March Madness, is driven by like strategy and, well, if we foul now, then we'll get that guy, and then we can take another shot, and he'll take a shot, and then we'll get the ball back, and it just slows the game down. Like that last minute can take 10 minutes, and that is awful to watch.
Yeah, believe it or not, I thought, and I don't know if it was a coaching deal in the first half. Did you notice that they kept fouling the center?
Mm-hmm.
And when they fouled him, he went to the line, and they slowed down the game dramatically. Rather than being down by 32 because Kansas couldn't find a bucket, all they had was it was still a manageable deficit. It wasn't a blowout. They slowed down the game. He was only shooting like 48, 52% from the line, and all of a sudden, you know, it's within reach after second half. And I don't know that anybody thought it was going to go the way it did, but it was a pretty great game. Yeah, back-to-back Duke, North Carolina games was a great game to watch. This game was also a great game to watch. They most definitely delivered.
Well, I think the thing that was so shocking to me was like you said, it's not that big of a deficit to overcome. That was like 20 points. That is a startling deficit to overcome.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely.
But they did. I mean, they came back. They changed their strategy altogether, started really running the other team, and it put them back into the place that they wanted to be playing basketball, which honestly, the way that the end of the game went was also Kansas's style. There wasn't a lot of fouling. It means that they can keep running the players up and down the court. There wasn't a lot of slowdowns and stops, and even the timeouts. Like, they stacked some timeouts.
They had a lot of players step up. They had a lot of their guard play was just completely different. I heard at halftime Charles Barkley said, the guard play for Kansas has got to speed up. I don't know if they were listening to that, but they did exactly what he said to do. The guard play for Kansas sped up. They were running the floor, playing hard defense, and man, right there, they were back in the game.
Well, not to mention, I mean, I think of the guy that came in off the bench, and I won't remember his name because I don't know it that well. But he comes in off the bench, and he's immediately like an improvement to the game. I don't know whether he just had the right pacing for the night or whether he brought the right intensity, but he comes in off the bench and sets the mood. Like, we're coming back hard, and they did.
Right, right. Now, for us old guys, our audience is a bunch of men out there probably with some kids, and I have to say that once you see that rolled ankle a second time, unfortunately, as I get older, I've noticed more and more and more that every injury that I incur, apparently, I get to deal with for the rest of my life. So it's kind of sad to see, when you really turn an ankle over like that back-to-back times, is he young enough to shake that forever? Is he going to have to be working that ankle all the time? Every injury I've ever had, it seems like if I'm not continuing to rehab almost, you wouldn't call it rehab because it happened 4 years ago, but let's be honest, if I don't keep my shoulder strong, my right shoulder hurts all the time.
Right.
If I don't work my neck, all of a sudden my neck's all jacked up. I mean, do you have any injuries like this?
Well, I sit there, and anytime I feel something hurt or get out of place, like my right shoulder is that one. I go back and I'm like, what did I do to hurt this? And most of the time, it's nothing. Like, I just slept. But then I think back, I was like, well, this right shoulder has hurt me ever since. And I go back to the original injury I had when I was in high school, and I'm like, well, is the reason anybody can be a really, like, long-lived athlete is they just stayed healthy during the first part, and they don't have to nurse all these old injuries.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, or you think of your Roger Clemens, Nolan Ryan side of things. When I was growing up, you learned all about how they had this crazy training regimen. Take the steroids aside or any of those kinds of things that can help you recover. But you think of that training regimen, and I can relate. The more that I work those muscles, the more that I work on all the stability muscles in a pain area, the better it feels. So you think of a guy like Roger Clemens, you got a little bit of arm issue, but he's always in the gym trying to keep it healthy.
Tight. Yeah. So you asked, I find myself, my shoulder, like I said specifically, I was even talking to my wife last night. I was like, hey, when our kids are in swimming, when I put my arm out like this, whole shoulder hurts. She's like, that's like just raising your hand. I was like, yeah, so raising my hand hurts. I can't go back to school now. I can't even ask for a thing. Lefty's fine. Righty, still that right shoulder. I haven't been doing enough to rehab it. It's not rehab.
I wouldn't call it rehab. It's always just maintenance, maintain this injury, make sure that it's not getting blown up. Believe it or not, mine is also my right shoulder, and I'm left-handed. I'll never forget it. I was playing first base in high school. Guy across the diamond at third base, he had a cannon, and he threw a ball high and across my body. I go on my tiptoe, I cross my hand across my face, and I catch it at this really funky angle.
Yep.
Whole shoulder goes...
Yep, weight of the ball pulls it up and out.
Yeah, a little bit of a pop. Could barely raise my arm afterwards. And I mean to tell you, for like 3 weeks, I could barely raise my arm. And to this day, if I bench press too much, if I do any type of shoulder movements where, the muscles in the area are slightly fatigued, nonstop shoulder pain.
Remember, we used to go to the Recplex. It's this great place where it's a giant pool.
Sure.
They had the 10-meter board. They had all those things. We're going diving off of it. I dive off of it, and I just land weird, and my right arm goes backwards a little bit more than it should, and it puts it out of place. It feels terrible for like 2-3 weeks.
Like a little separation kind of a deal, or like...
I couldn't tell you exactly what happened, because I'm underwater. I don't hear anything. I just know it hurts bad. Like, I remember getting out of the water and just letting that arm hang, like, limp.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
So it's in a bad spot. I go to a chiropractor. He actually massages a big old knot out of it, and it feels better. But I'm running into a spot where, a couple years ago, we're playing volleyball. It's the exact same shoulder. I lean way out, kind of like you said, across the body, and I'm trying to swing the ball back in. And as soon as I pull it across, I feel the weight hit weird. The exact same feeling comes back, and I go, oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Did you end up having like a big ball of tension again? A big knot or anything?
So you remember we got that gift a while back, the trigger
massager, whichever brand you want to call it.
Right. So I used that, and I don't think I immediately knotted up like that, but my shoulder wasn't like, I could not play volleyball for, I bet 3 months. Like, it was done. I can't use the shoulder and expect it to do what it should do.
What were you doing to get rid of it? Is it back in action now?
It is now. Like I said, it's tender now. I can still feel that it's tender, so I probably need to get back in. But the thing that I found did the best was that standard shoulder mobility, like strength building thing. You've probably done it before. You grab a rubber band or you grab I guess it would be any kind of machine that has the weight, and you twist it outside the body. And then you switch over to the other side and you twist it into the body. Did that, loved it, worked out great. But I feel like if I'm not doing it every week, I'm not getting the benefit of it.
So if the idea was to bulletproof your life, bulletproof your body, if you were to say, what are your pain points in your body that you continue to accumulate as you age?
Mm-hmm.
Where are the spots that are, a glass house or, stuff
ready
to fall
like
apart?
You mean me personally.
Yeah, what exactly are the pain points?
I got right shoulder. I've got, I'll give you the noises that they make. I got a right shoulder that makes a weird, like, every once in a while, which is really fun because it sounds like I'm popping something out. I've got a back that I don't know why it does. Can't remember. I can't remember the injury that caused it, but something
like a disc thing,
probably something mid back, and when it gets fatigued or something, it goes bad. Last one is a knee. Don't know why it does it, but it'll just give out.
So you have a completely different past than me,
Mm-hmm.
and a completely different past with a bunch of people that I've worked with when I was training a ton. All same areas.
No.
What's up with that?
What are yours?
It's the same thing. It's a shoulder, it's a knee, and sometimes in a back. As I get older, the back seems to be a thing that can hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it always bothers me, but when you sleep funny or you sleep on something weird, what is this old man stuff of like back getting all tight on you? It definitely, the joints in the extremities that have the most movement are most definitely the issue. Always.
So I think the back is a really good place to start. You've got a back injury that you can't isolate as to when it happened. I've got like probably 7 rib injuries that probably dislocated something in my back, if I had to guess. What thing do you find that ends up loosening up that back or maybe bulletproofing it that help you out?
The back's tough because as long as so to get to the point, hanging is a really, really good thing to do to lengthen everything out. If you are strong enough to hang,
Mm-hmm.
all your vertebrae get to decompress, everything in your scapula and your rhomboids and all those muscles get to stretch out. So anytime that I'm having any kind of tension in my back, I'm definitely working a hanging protocol. And without a doubt, it helps a ton. And it may not help the first day, may not help the second day. It's similar to like going to a chiropractor. If anybody's ever had any success in a chiropractic setting, the first one is a little bit of a shell shock. You're not really sure if it feels that good or not. It cracked loud, so it must be good, but you're not real positive if that was good. But as time goes on and you're really stretching everything out, you can start to slowly see the benefits more and more over time. Hanging, number one, a lot of core work. A lot of people aren't working their abs quite as much. I've found that as soon as I start getting into a consistent ab routine, pretending I'm going to have this shredded six-pack again, my back also feels much better.
Hold on, so you're trying to have a six-pack.
For like 2 decades, yeah. The six-packs was going to be in the cards. I just...
So it's, to be clear, it just doesn't work for you.
Yeah, the six-pack for me, I've been pretty close to like a good 4-pack, but it requires me to be like, I'm a below 10 guy to have a six-pack.
You mean below 10% body fat?
Yeah, I've been down to 11, and I've been at 10, and I've been at 9 very briefly. And I got really, really scrawny because, you're just trying to cut an awful lot of weight, and my abs do not show until a very low body fat percentage. And unfortunately, some people are like that, and some people get it at 12. Some people can get it at a 13, which is much easier to achieve.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of fading. The
Right.
desire for the six-pack is...
So the six-pack goes away,
fading.
but now you have to remember I'm doing this for my back.
Yeah, unfortunately, as I get older, I mean, literally my entire workout is revolving around maintenance. And it's so depressing to say it out loud like this, but the treasure chest I'm not as interested in because the more it gets treasury, the more my shoulder hurts.
Right, because it's being pulled.
Yeah, so I tighten everything up front, and then I neglect the backside a little bit, or it's just the tension of the slightly more tension rolled forward. Hanging kind of, sort of, gives me a little grace period because it stretches my pecs and keeps everything loose. But Yeah, the more I push, the more shoulder issues I have. So the more shoulder maintenance work I do, Jobs, 5-pound dumbbells at the 45s, doing a ton of band work and things like that. Shoulder feels great. Body feels great. Treasure chest,
Not
done
happening.
coming.
Yeah. All right. So I think that brings up a good point, though. Like, we've got these common injuries. I would assume that everyone's got a knee, a back, and a shoulder. Once you get to be almost 50, as we've established.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost 60 now.
I mean,
it's been,
if you're rounding up,
right.
I'm almost 100.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of, when I see you, I think of 50. You know what I mean? I think of
I
how
get it.
bad it can look. No, but in all reality, it really just seems, though, is the more everyone sits, the more we're, always have your heels towards your butt. It seems like your knees always start to get a little more throbby. You tweak them every now and again. When's the last time you ran a cone drill?
Actually, it's funny you're asking that, because I watched this kid roll his ankle. I think of Brady going back in. I'm thinking of all these people. I got nothing. Like, I imagine myself going into that. And I'm not a top tier athlete.
Tom Brady turning 45 or something this year. Guy's still kind of doing okay. When I think about rounding a corner and running from a linebacker, I think of pooping my pants. Is
right.
what I think.
I think of taking a hard left and watching my knee just go.
Yeah.
So that said, I don't think I can do those sorts of things, but I don't know whether it's because I haven't trained for it or whether it's because my body's just gotten so old. It's not going to do it anymore.
I think my body still comes back. I think yours probably would. I think it seems as though that gap is a little bit bigger as long as your weight is under control. But if you haven't run a cone drill or changed direction in any amount of time, and then you go back and give it the old okie doke you used to, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to kind of build up to that stuff. I used to do tons and tons of plyometrics in these fitness classes. There'd be 30, 40 people out there. We'd be pounding out box jumps, crazy feet, tons of jumping jacks. And I mean to tell you, I do jumping jacks right now, and I can feel it in my neck.
I can feel it in my brain.
Yeah,
like
it's weird.
When my brain bounces, I think about that specifically. Have you ever gone to like one of the gymnastic places with your daughter and just like tried to jump on the trampolines there?
Oh, and you feel your brain jump out of your head into your throat?
Splash, splash, splash.
They have those huge trampoline parks that are really cool for kids, but they're kind of in a setting to where old people can get on them, and
Right.
they shouldn't.
Well, it's encouraged even. It's like, come on out here. We made this for you.
You're going to do great. We have the ambulance on speed dial. We'll get them over here for you.
Did I tell you about the time I went to one of those with my boys?
Huh.
Oh my gosh. So we go
Were you a ninja? You thought you were at first.
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
You've seen the images where the guys bounce on the trampoline, then jump up and land on a big old tower or something.
Yeah, because they're athletic.
That's what I am. So I'm athletic. I go in there and I'm watching this, and the kids are all going and doing their thing, and I kind of get a spot to myself where I get to test out how good I am.
Yeah.
I jump up on this thing, and we'll say it's 8 feet for something to call it.
You should call it 12.
It was 12 feet.
Yeah.
So it was 12 feet at the top, and I jump up and I land right up on it. And I'm like, that's awesome. Directly to my right is one that is no more than 1.5 feet taller. Well, I land on the one, and it didn't feel hard. I'm going to hit the next one. So I jump down and I jump up on it. It goes so badly. Like, I realize I'm not going to make it, and I push off. It's like, oh, that was a close one. So I give it 3 more bounces, and I come in hot to the wall. Like, it's just a mind thing. I need to just commit.
Right.
Don't commit. That was a bad move.
Did you go higher than the first time?
No, might not have even made it as high as the first time. I land belly down, just wham on the side, like you expect every superhero to do when they miss the ledge by that much.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Boom! I hit so hard, and I feel like just like my body groaned, and then I groaned. And the guy who's watching me goes, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." I'm not breathing. Like I can't make air move in and out of my body. I'm okay. I hop down. The moment my feet hit the trampoline and I'm trying to like gather myself, I thought I was gonna pass out.
Really?
Oh!
Did you mess up a rib or something, or just knock the wind out of you?
I don't think it was one. I think I took 3 of them out.
Oh,
It was bad. So I go out and I'm there with, my whole family's there. Got my kids, got my wife. My wife sees me and she goes, "Why do you look like you want to throw up?" I was like,
It's because I am going to.
"I can't breathe." And she's like, "What do you mean you can't breathe?" I was like, "I did a thing back there and I think I broke my ribs." She goes, "Do we need to go to the hospital?" And of course I'm like, No, I mean,
Oh, this will straighten out.
I'll be fine. Funny thing about the straighten out, it does not straighten out.
Right.
Now, when I lay back and I look down my body, some of my ribs point out and the rest of them point in.
Yeah,
I
normal.
messed them up bad.
Have you ever went and got them like cracked, crackle popped?
No. I went I guess the week that it happened, I went in there and he goes, "Yeah, you got too much, like everything's too tense. You just need to wrap this. And if you wrap it tight enough, you'll keep your look. Everything will be where it should be and it'll heal in place. I can't really cast your rib." So that makes sense. So I do. I wrap it as tight as I can. I can barely breathe, but it didn't 100% me. I've now got fish gill wings.
You get it forever.
Forever.
Good for you. That's, yeah.
I assume that translates back up to my spine, which is another reason why my spine's got that big old thing. Turns out when you take a giant hit to a unmoving object when you're flying through the air off a trampoline, it does not respond well.
Yeah, the body, I don't know what it is about a body when it's 9 years old can just take any hit you want on a trampoline.
Cartilage?
But when she gets a little older, this body don't like those bumps.
The brain thing is the thing I can't figure out. What does that feel like to you?
When I would jump, I literally feel like my face and my brain comes down to my throat.
That's the face is just the fat. Like it's
Gotcha.
the fat sloshing.
So I have a funny story with that as well. I took my daughter there to the trampoline deal. You pulled that stunt. I thought the cool thing would be is, you know how they have the wall of trampoline?
Mm-hmm.
So I would jump, and I thought it would be cool if I could easily hit the wall, come back, land on my feet, and then
keep
move
going.
on.
Yeah.
Well, what had happened was I jumped and I hit it, and somehow it went nowhere back towards the trampoline. And I landed in the spring area. Everything buckled. My foot goes through the bottom, and I just biff it hard.
You just like a spring to the crotch.
Yeah,
just
so my first experience on testing was death and destruction, so there was no more testing. Now I basically run around like an old man on the trampolines and don't even jump. I feel like my right knee's going to explode when I jump, and my brain is in my throat. So I'm just like, this ain't for me.
See, I learned to do backflips and all that kind of stuff on trampolines. You remember the gal that lived down the street from us?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would go down there. She taught me how to do a backflip on a trampoline. Love that. I did one backflip on a trampoline there at that park. I legitimately must have jumped so jarringly to thought I blacked out. Just
Wow.
slosh.
Yucky.
So maybe there is a thing. Maybe your brain is suspended better when you're a kid.
You wonder if it's like your equilibrium. Your equilibrium kind of slowly changes, or is it just strictly you have not done this stuff for so long that we don't have the mind-body connection anymore?
I don't know. Or even just the idea of like maybe my brain has gotten smaller, and so it's got a lot more room to slosh.
It's more efficient.
That's what it is.
It's more efficient.
It's an efficiency model.
Yeah, it shrinks it, so technically it's more efficient, not dumber.
Yeah, it's like getting a phone. You want a smaller, smarter, better phone.
Yeah,
That's
I
what's
get
going
it.
on in here.
But like when I lift weights, I attribute it to like that. You know, if you've lifted weights for a long time and you go back to lifting weights, it's kind of like you feel like a sissy. You're not able to lift near the amount of weight, but you do it for 2 or 3 weeks. All of a sudden, you're right back in the game, and it happens pretty quick. And that age gap can be all the way up into your 50s and 60s. You can be in the same strength level. It just takes a little bit. So I would have to imagine that the trampoline world and the athleticism stuff, you could probably get it back a little bit. You're just more fragile.
It could be. I honestly think, though, I'm not as explosive as I would. Like I'm telling anybody something new. I'm definitely not as explosive as I was when I was younger. Like, do you feel legitimately like a person can get back that cutting, or are the ligaments just too far gone?
You know, like I said, I think you're more fragile. So as you're becoming... Your body does a lot of stuff to protect itself, and I'm not real sure that it's actually...
Laziness is, I think, the number one protection factor.
But you think about a guy like Tom Brady or anybody that comes towards the end of their career that are super gamers. They're training really hard, they're eating right, and the reason why they have to eat so perfect to be there is because their body doesn't digest all the good stuff anymore. You almost have to be perfect, and I think with Tom Brady's books and, you know, the latest jazz of what all he's doing, it sounds like the guy's on point with everything he needs to be, and he's been able to take everything to a very, very lengthy career. But when you think about that, is he as mobile as he was before? He doesn't look like he's missed a step, really, but he's just more fragile.
But then again, we also don't know what does his week look like. Like, it's one thing when you're a 25-year-old.
Training your hiney off is what it is.
Well, that's what I
sleeping.
mean. Like a 25-year-old, his week probably looks like I can do that and then do other things because I got extra energy, I got extra repair. But as a 40-year-old, it's probably exactly what you said. I train really hard and then I sleep. That's my day.
And I eat perfect and do all the things because there's no doubt that you're not as resilient. You know, you used to be able to drink like a fish. You used to be able to exercise super hard, not be sore for 4 days. A lot of those things are a real deal. I remember I trained this guy, and he was big-time bodybuilder guy, all in. And he came in and wanted to get back into it. He said he hadn't worked out in like 5 or 6 years. He's like, I know how to work out. I just need a little bit of kick in the hiney. I need a little motivation to get me going again, and I'll be all in. So I'm like, that's fine. So we went through a chest and tries day. He wanted to do it similar to his old school mentality where he was cycling different body or muscle groups. And literally after the first day, he said he called in, next day canceled, and said, I'm probably going to take a couple weeks off and see if this is still going to be for me. I can barely lift my arms above my head. And it was an interesting time for me to reflect on, was it my fault? You know, did we take you too far? I like to really self-reflect in a lot of those things.
I mean, because in reality, you might have blown this guy up.
Yeah. You paid me to train you. And the whole time he was asking for more, asking for more, asking for more. And it wasn't that we did anything too insane, but we would do, you know, we did a press that was in his wheelhouse, 10 to 12 reps. The higher the reps, I was thinking we'd be just fine. Then we went over to some tricep extensions and basic workout. We're at ground zero here. You haven't worked out in a long time. No problem. He wants a little more. So, you know, we wrap up this deal with some tricep extensions, simple with the ropes. Like I said, this is nothing crazy.
Sure.
We do 3 sets of 30, just literally going for blood flow, trying to get him back in the game, trying to get everything moving. And he tells me he can barely straight or bend his arms. His triceps were so sore the next day. And it was kind of funny because he basically decided it wasn't for him. So he decided that he's not going to work out anymore because he doesn't want to be sore.
But that's what makes me wonder. Is the reason because he went from 0-0 to basic or even moderate activity, or do you think it was because he went from 0 with a memory of what an elite guy would do?
I don't know.
And was trying to hit that.
I have a slightly more sinister approach. I think he was just never a bodybuilder and he was just blowing smoke. So I gave him an exercise routine that probably would push the envelope for someone that had never done it before. But if you are saying you were everything you were, this was not an intense workout. If you've got any experience lifting weights, I mean, what we were doing was pretty cut of the mill, pretty 1970, lifting some weights, nothing to. So I would say, like, you know, I think you were just talking a big game. I know you brought your tank top. I know you had your shorts on.
Did he bring a
water?
water?
He had a bandana. He was fitting the mold.
Did he have a water?
No, he had a jug. So it was like
a gallon of water jug?
He was painting the scene as we're serious about this. But, you know, he was a bigger guy. It wasn't like he probably never lifted weights at all. And you never know. I'm just saying, I think sometimes, you know, you might bite off a little more than you can chew.
Well, yeah. I sit there and I imagine, though, all of the things that I've ever done. Like, I used to be a ref, and I would run up and down the fields, and I would do those things. And I'm noticing more and more of my activities like that are in straightforward fashion now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, my knees go forward and backward, forward and backward. They don't go side to side anymore. I don't cut. I don't do anything like that. Everything is straight lining.
And when you do cut again,
I'm afraid.
You better take it slow.
I'm terrified.
Yeah, you better take it slow for sure.
So that said, imagine, you know, we've talked about our back. We've talked about a little bit of the shoulder. If I'm trying to figure out my knee, like, which we're coming to the time of year I need to do that again, what things do I need to be working on to bulletproof my knee, as it were?
I think the best way to bulletproof your knee is make sure that your quads are flexible, your IT bands are flexible, and your hamstrings are strong. And the reason why I say that is because when your quads get too tight, you get a lot of extra tension in your kneecap. And then for some reason, no matter what maybe you have something torn. Maybe you have some bone spurs. Maybe you have some kind of damage in your meniscus. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is when everything's really tight, somehow all the pain points become more apparent. So if you stretch your IT bands more, if you make sure that your hamstrings are good and strong, it supports the joint better. But more often than not, you're almost being the antagonist, right? Your quads are always getting stronger because you're always using them.
Sure.
Your hamstrings are just sitting there in a shortened state because you're always sitting.
Also true.
get your hamstring stronger, stabilize the joint, stretch the IT bands in your glutes, kind of same area, kind of same stretches. And if you do that, I've noticed knee pain, always, 2 to 3 times a week. IT bands, hamstrings, quads, flexibility, strength for the hammies. The shoulder, you get your Job exercises in, get some 5-pound dumbbells, go through the 45s out to the side, do the empty soups. A little bit of band work, always working the 3-second counts on the way in, just nice and slow. Huge game changer for the way your shoulder is going to feel. Always in that same little time period, hang. You got to hang. Mm-hmm. Great for the shoulders. Get your traps, your pecs, even your back all starts to get a little bit longer, a little bit more, resilient to things. You really get to stretch them. And that's also going to help your back. And then your back, unfortunately, it's twofold. It's core exercises, side bridges, front bridges, and abs. Abs.
Well, and I think the thing I always miss on the abs thing is I forget to do my back. Like I forget to do Supermans or do things like that where I'm actually engaging those back muscles to give my spine muscles all the way around it that are strong.
Well, the strength is key, right? Strength is key, but flexibility is the thing that you're actually most of the time feeling pain with.
Oh, I don't have flexibility in my spine. It's not made for flexibility.
Right, so the back is attached to the glutes and the hammies. So if you're not stretching your glutes and your hammies, which you're getting your glutes a little on the IT band stretch, but when you're working your hamstrings, that is probably from 9 times out of 10 people I've worked with, their hamstrings, they can barely even get close to their toes and their back hurts. So what do? We're going to do a little bit of stretching on the back, nice and easy, and then we're going to stretch the hamstrings. More often than not, 2 weeks in, back pain gone.
It is funny. So as you're talking, like I'm thinking through all this, there's a lot of jargon in there. But I've watched a lot of your videos, so it makes sense. And shameless plug maybe, but I think some of the videos you have on some of those topics are really a much better place to start on maybe than just this conversation between the two of us.
So I'll give you a couple of examples, then we can move on. Like the Rejuvenate stretching sequence is with a foam roller. It's a whole little program I put together to help from head to toe. The shoulder progression workout with the KB power bands. You don't have to have KB power bands. Grab you any type of resistance band, but it'd take you maybe 10, 12 minutes. Just a little sequence for rotator cuff work, flexibility, stability. And let's see, what is another one? Hamstrings and legs. You just have to look up leg workouts with K-bands or something. You'll find some of the material. But, a lot of it just has to do, if you want to bulletproof your body, knees, shoulders, back, flexibility has to be that's why people later in life, I feel like when they come across yoga, it's like revolutionary because it's the fountain of youth almost. They get to where they were before when your body used to be resilient and your body used to have flexibility. You didn't hurt. And then all of a sudden, everything starts locking up as you get older.
So riddle me this, and it's a weird one. My wife and I decided to try and start stretching. We watched some TikTok or something where someone had a stretch thing that said, I am 100% going to, all out stretch every single day. That was their goal. I'm going to stretch. Like, let's give it a shot. Because we both felt junky. We gave it a shot. Moral of the story, it hurt more. And I don't know whether it's because we didn't get past the conditioning phase or whether it's just like, no, don't do that.
Well, I don't know. I some upper level stretching does not feel good, but did you warm up at all?
Sure. Like when you say warm up, you obviously mean like you got changed.
No, I didn't mean you put on a shirt that said warm up in pink. Up. No, I'm saying like, did you get your muscles warm whatsoever before you were doing these advanced stretches?
So here I'm gonna no.
Oh.
No, I've realized through most of my life that I think it was probably just being a kid and didn't need to warm up for so long that I haven't. I stopped, and so I don't. And I probably need to. So what's a warm-up that I should be doing before I get into yoga world?
I just started doing this probably 6 or 7 months ago, 6 months-ish, and I find it to be the easiest warm-up known to man. You put on a band around your waist, and if you have a partner, it's even better. You and your wife could put 2 bands around your waist, and you back pedal really slowly, dragging each other, and you can start super light. And this is not something I was doing before. I had listened to Joe Rogan with the knees over toes guy, started playing around with this concept. And it actually is a really, really good warm-up because you can start slow. You can not add much resistance at all. If you're working with a partner, you kind of resist each other pretty light. And by the time that you're done, your glutes are burning, your hips are burning, your legs are burning. And you could do cycles just like anything else. Go back and forth a couple times, resist each other. Next, take a couple minutes off, walk around, do some stretches, static stuff, pull the arms across, stretch the hamstrings. And then the next set you do, add a little more resistance. After like 10 minutes, believe it or not, it's better than a treadmill, better than a bike, better than any kind of dynamic movement as you get a little older and all that stuff kind of hurts. This is a pretty good way to warm up. It's a compelling.
So it's a back pedal drag. I'm engaging these muscles instead of just like back pedaling. I'm trying to pull.
Yeah, I mean, you can, let's be honest, you can warm up 1,000 different ways. But
Sure.
That is what I've been using for about the last 6 months to warm up. And I've been finding it to be a nice change of pace. And I think it really is very, very compelling. If you're by yourself, you can get some longer sets of resistance bands, or you kind of, there's a lot of loop style where you can tie them together and make you a little bit longer deal where you can move in an 8 to 12 foot radius. And that does
one of
about
those
the same
drag
thing.
sleds. What if I've got a kid that just holds onto my ankles? Like, because that happens pretty regularly around the house.
Well, you could drag them on something though.
Just drag
no,
them.
really though. It's like a sled.
Yeah,
You
grab
can do
a
the same
sled.
thing. Sure, have them sit on something, drag them around.
That could work.
But it's pretty easy, and it warms up your hips and your glutes probably more than you might think. When an average person thinks about a back pedal that's never done this before, you think, oh, your quads will be nice and toasty. I promise you, if you get a heavy person on the other side, and I don't mean they're overweight, I just mean they're giving you a lot of weight.
Right.
You go back and forth a couple times, actually your butt and your hips burn more than anything else. It's kind of weird. It's a little bit surprising, but highly recommend that. Don't have to do much. Do that with your wife back and forth, and then start the stretch routine. I'm sure it won't even hurt at all at that point.
I can't imagine. It is funny though, because I sit there and I think about like, how did I learn to stretch when I was a kid? And maybe that's what the coaches were doing at the time. But I learned to stretch by like, you got out there getting ready to go work out and you just stretched. You did warm up stretching.
Right.
And right now what I'm finding is warm up stretching is bogus. Like, don't warm up stretch. Warm up, I guess, which is the part I wasn't doing.
With athletics, your traditional approach would be in 2000 and on probably is all the dynamic warm up. So you're doing like high lunges, little twists, and then you get a little deeper. You might do some stutter step stuff, raise your knee up.
The stuff you're watching when you watch like Barcelona warm up or any of the soccer teams
Absolutely.
warm up. Okay.
Yeah,
I can do that.
Yeah, your general dynamic stuff for like 5 minutes, kind of move back and forth, a little side shuffle, a little high knee kind of thing. And most everything depends on what age you are. And do you want to just jump out and bump out some high knees, super high intensity? If you're healthy and you feel fine. But if you're starting out, just raise your legs up. You just got to get warmed up. It's move some things through range of motion. But yoga is definitely the fountain of youth. If you are bound up and have a lot of pain, I would say bar none, the ultimate pain relief is to get your range of motion back.
Have you, since yoga is the fountain of youth, have you gotten into yoga lately?
No, I don't do yoga. Unfortunately,
right, because
I do yoga style techniques for some stretches, but I have never sat down and done like a 45-minute yoga routine because I enjoy lifting weights, but I utilize a lot of the techniques of like the dynamic warm-ups through full range of motion. So rather than doing a lunge and twist, I'm doing like a deep lunge and twist, really trying to get through the full range of motion. I use the principles of yoga probably more than like sitting in a room sweating full yoga poses the entire workout. I kind of use an abbreviated version. 45 minutes is a long time stretching.
So I'll say this. I jumped into a yoga thing. We just did a retreat recently, and they had yoga in the morning. Cool idea. I was like, I'm going to give everything a shot. Whenever I go on a thing like that, I want to give it a shot.
Sure.
I show up. I start doing the thing. And the thing I get so hung up on yoga is it's all this mental, like we're going to fix your brain while we fix your body. And so much of it seems like for lack of a better term, absolute bullshit. Like there's just this element where I'm like, I think you're overselling this milk. Like, this is not any of, like, you just feel better when you stretch more. You just feel better when your body feels better. You're not doing magic voodoo to my brain parts. And now, namaste.
What would be an example when they're telling you, breathe in, breathe out, there goes all your pain, like that kind of stuff?
Yeah, like we did one where it was like you did the deep stretch, like your hands are on the ground. I think they called it downward dog maybe, and you're like really trying to open up some muscles. First of all, they said really feel that squeeze. That's a great stretch. It was not a stretch. we were definitely flexing that muscle. So already I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, which puts me in a bad spot. But secondly, as I'm stretching and I'm getting open and everything like that, she goes, feel the bad energy leave your body. And I was like, what? I feel pain.
You're supposed to be relaxing and letting the pain go away. You didn't do it.
And so she tried to help out. She goes, remember, take that deep breath in. And as that breath comes in, pool all of that negative energy in your breath and breathe it out and feel that just exit your person. That's my favorite part. Exit your person.
That's
and
nice.
I was like, what? I do feel like you absolutely feel like when you take that breath, your stretch goes deeper.
You would have wanted more of a take a deep breath and relax.
Yeah, let's be mechanics here.
Let's just talk about what's happening. Let's get the virtual rituals out of here. And
I'll resell the whole thing. Here's what yoga could look like to me, and I would feel great. Welcome to yoga class. We're going to stretch some stuff pretty deep. Buckle in, breathe hard.
It sounds like that guy's like smoking a heater in a vest. You
Right,
know what I mean? Like,
he's got
all
his
right,
yoga mat
guys.
laid out. It's got a pillow on it because he
I
doesn't.
just shaved my legs to be more festive. The first stretch. Here we go.
and I would be like, yeah, I'm in. This is my yogi. They have a name, right? You know that, right?
It's a yogi?
You're a yogi. Like if you're really into yoga, you're a yogi.
Nice.
That guy he'd be my Yogi Berra.
I would have to go try. I mean, like I said, I know that it would be extremely beneficial, but the only yoga classes that I've partially been, when I trained at a gym all the time, you're around anything that's hip and cool. So yoga's always there. And I've, overseen a lot of the exercises. I've analyzed the model. I've looked at it a ton. I'm kind of in your camp. I don't know about all the weird stuff. For 45 minutes, I got to listen to you talk about the weird stuff.
Yeah,
Can we just stretch and relax?
Tell me how to breathe the demons out of my sphincters. Like
I didn't even know I had demons in there.
I mean, I knew I had sphincter demons, but I didn't know that was how I was going to get rid of them.
That's just because I am Mexican, but
Exactly.
I didn't know that they were there for any other reason.
But I do like the idea. I like the idea of yoga. I like that it's not really stretching, but it is. It's like lengthening your muscle and keeping it engaged through its full range of motion. And that I totally buy into.
Right. The whole idea of just like touching your toes, not really going to get... You want it to be strong and long.
Yes.
For many ways, you know what I mean? Wait, what? But you want to have strength in the full range of motion. That's where I kind of sitting in there for 45 minutes and stretching is just really not my cup of tea. But going through dynamic types of exercises, going through full range of motion, I completely will steal the concept and move it into my own training. You know what I'm saying?
It's part of the reason why I like calisthenics so much is because you are trying to move your body and use your body weight through an entire range of motion. It's wonderful.
Now, do you feel like when you've gone through your fat loss deals where you're trying to shed a couple pounds throughout the year, do you find that just moving in general is helping you? Do you find weight training being an issue, a factor? Do you find the calisthenics to be a big factor? Or what is your catalyst of fat loss?
I think as far as movements go, doing high weight sort of things like lifting weights and doing that, I think that sets the pace. Like I've now primed the pump. I'm going to be engaging bigger muscles. And I think they start actually, whether it's basal metabolic rate or whether it's just a high intensity workout, I think that sets the bar for what my body's going to do. Beyond that, though, I like to do like calisthenic HIIT type workouts because I think it's something that I can feel intense about and afterwards feel like I've really moved. I like the idea of being a very mobile body, and I don't like the idea of doing just weights where it's in a very singular plane of motion. It's going to sound stupid. I like the guys that sit there and they do that like capoeira, like monkey walking across the ground where they've got deep strength all the way down into like the lowest spaces on the floor. Like I watch that. While it looks silly, I kind of envy the ability to do that. Like that's a power in a space that I don't have power right now.
Right, because your ribs are so jacked up.
It's mostly the ribs.
I injured my ribs quite a long time ago, a ski accident. I kind of broke my ribs, I believe. It was all cracked up, went in there and got them checked out. And to this day, if I do any type of a core exercise, really, really, really like hanging, lifting the knees or sitting on a dip bar, doing different types of lower extremity movements. But literally every workout, a little bit of fatigue, rib.
Yep.
Still,
Yep.
the connective tissues around there just are not happy campers. You know what I mean? I don't know.
That's a crazy thing.
So have you been reading about any conspiracies and stuff? Or, I'm a big fan.
We've talked about conspiracies probably for as long as you've been able to speak. Like, I've loved that you get all in on conspiracies.
Yeah. JFK changed my life, man. JFK was probably the biggest conspiracy. If you went through every paper that I had to write through high school and college, it was literally always the JFK conspiracy.
You were not even alive for that. Like, how
I
did
know.
it capture your imagination
I don't
so
know.
much?
I think conspiracies to me is the ultimate level of like nonfiction fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like fiction at all. I can't read a fiction book. I'm not into it whatsoever.
Okay.
I like truths. Funny that I say truths.
Right.
Conspiracy theory. But I like the idea of true reality. I like the idea of possibly this could be true. This could be very compelling. And in a fictional way, I'm okay with it. I don't know. I don't like fantasy unless you play by the entire rules. When do
you get mad, to let you go back to it in a second, but do you get mad when you find out that the conspiracy was a lie or it was wrong?
I've been disappointed by the conspiracy theory world many, many times in my life, but over the last 5 or 6 years, it's happened multiple times, like one on top of one another, where I'm kind of sort of taking a step back from the conspiracy thumper train.
You're just putting it on the shelf for a bit?
Well, unfortunately, it seems to me that most every conspiracy seems insanely compelling to where you can connect the dots. And let me tell you, I get in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
I've went down them in the road being all in. I do believe this to be true.
Yeah, I've seen your tinfoil hat.
I've connected every dot. And when it's interesting because that same path could also be explained by opportunistic capitalism. As soon as some crazy format happens, if you also took it as, hey, I'm a billionaire. I'm going to call in all my billionaire friends, and we're going to figure out how to make the most amount of money out of this, out of every single situation. And when you look at it like that, the same types of events could have occurred.
Right. Well, not even that. It doesn't even need to be to shove into the conspiracy thing. He doesn't even need to call anybody else. If the billionaire mind is thinking like that, well, so is the other billionaire mind and the other billionaire mind. Like, it's just the way human nature will be. If you can find an advantage and exploit it, you're going to. And they can and do.
Yeah, and something happens, everybody tries to take advantage of it, and then it just happened. But JFK, for instance, I don't know that you would call it. It's a very compelling story because there are so many question marks, and it could just be the unexplainable, but there is so many shenanigans involved in that particular conspiracy that it becomes the president of the United States, most popular person in the whole entire world got assassinated.
And a very controversial, I don't want to say controversial presidency, but he had a lot of things a lot of moving parts. Like, he was a big member of the space race. He was a big member of trying to stop the Soviet spread. He was a big member of, he had his hand in so many really, really important tasks. Then he's dead.
Oh, yeah. I think there was definitely some shenanigans that definitely happened, but I tell you, it was on National Geographic's or Discovery Channel, and when I watched it, and I would love to go back and see it. I haven't seen it in a long time, but when I left that episode, I went away thinking, man, there might just be a little bit more simplicity to this. And the one point I'll make with it is the lead prosecuting attorney or attorney general, I don't remember his exact title, but he was able to finally speak. And he was an old man, and the producer of the show was sitting on there. And what they did was they were trying to describe what possibly could have happened with the magic bullet, and also how did the guy down the street get shot.
Yeah, I remember this part.
And what I thought was so crazy about it is, you just got to think about it a different way. What if it was that simple? And he kind of showed how that there was a scuff on the stoplight on the first bullet that was shot. Mm-hmm. And when the first bullet was shot, he was right underneath it, where you would probably shoot a guy if you were trying to assassinate him. And where it hit the street light, there was a scuff on there, and they didn't have the street light at the time of the theory. But it's pretty much right in line with the guy down the street, that if he would have hit the street light, he hits the guy down the street, that takes away the whole grassy knoll concept.
Right.
Because that's how you explain that.
You've removed the need to have another bullet being fired because the same bullet zigzags because of ricochets.
Right, and they had interviews with other eyewitnesses. Now, whether or not these people are true, or whether or not the real people are trying to push the narrative, all the things, right? But there was one witness that literally saw him stick his head out the window, first shot, turns the corner, second shot, and the most compelling thing of the entire argument was when you lined up the street light concept, the first bullet was to the right, and then when you line up when the next two shots were taken, it also put the bullets where they were supposed to be. But the big piece behind that conspiracy was the Zapruder film is literally one of the biggest evidence pieces, if not the only thing that most people refer to.
As far as like evidence for
the timing,
the conspiracy?
The timing of the bullets is where that thing is really, really used as the timing of it. Okay. And what the producer guy had suggested is that the guy turned on the camera when he heard the gunshot, he drops it down and he turned it off for a split second. And then what if he thought, let me turn this thing back on? Mm-hmm. And he raised it up. And when the guy lined up the film reel, if you turned it off and turned it on, that day and age, it landed right on the film. Mm-hmm. And when he brought it back up, the car had moved forward, right? And all the things were to be true. But think about that. If I drop the camera and turn it off, your eye view seems as though we haven't really missed anything.
Right.
But if you're talking about split seconds of bullet timing, potentially those two shots are a little bit farther apart if I turned it off.
Right.
So when you think about the whole thing play out, I've got my first shot. It hits the guy down the street.
Right.
Hits the light. Missed him. I reload. I have to turn my angle because he's moving from me.
Right.
And now I have two more shots farther away. It just leads you to believe that maybe there's just a whole lot more of a simple approach. Now, whether or not the CIA was involved, the FBI was involved in setting up Oswald, whether or not Oswald was a lonesome dove, whether there was all of these scenarios, sure. When you look at that one key factor of the timing of the bullets, the eyewitnesses, it leads you to believe there is a whole lot more of a simple approach, which most of these conspiracies try to pretend that everything sings and dances perfectly together.
Right.
And I don't know that that's always the case.
Well, I mean, it doesn't remove the entire complexity behind Oswald. It just says that Oswald is most likely the guy that did it.
That's why the conspiracy is so compelling. It's like you look at the whole picture of shenanigans.
Right.
And there must be some insane thing that happened.
Exactly.
Or they set up a lonesome dove. He goes out there and does the job. Then they get a guy from the mafia to go off him. And it could have kind of sort of been that simple.
I mean, now, that doesn't take away the fact is why did he do it? Why did, all those things? You'll never fully unpack those things. You can get evidence one way or the other, but it does at least make it so it's not this gigantic clockwork machinery assassination that's Ocean's 11 style. It is just it's just a dude up in a clock tower that plinked a president. That makes it sound super
super simple, super But I mean, it is though. The guy literally walked up into a tower and then sat there and
waited till they drove by and.
The only thing that I find to be insane about the grassy knoll theory of bullets coming from behind is you would think that there would just be endless amounts of interviews of someone saying, "I literally saw a shooter."
Right,
and it always is. I get a kick out of Elon Musk when they ask him about aliens, and he says, doesn't everybody have a 4K phone and no one has a video of anything compelling that's in the sky? And it makes a good point. Same thing then. No one literally said, no, I saw a guy standing right there and he had a handgun and he shot at him, which that's one hell of a shot with a handgun. But I've stood there, and when you think that this is an impossible shot, go stand there and look through a sniper rifle. It is not that far.
Right.
It is really not that far.
I play Call of Duty. I'm pretty good.
But if you were a marksman, wouldn't it be in the same comparable level?
Absolutely.
You practice all the time.
Not to mention, this guy is doing exactly what you would hope a person would do. He's in an open car, no roof on the thing. He's driving basically away from you, and there's two sniper modes. That's the wrong word for it, but basically techniques. I'm either doing the follow shoot, which means I have my crosshairs following the person, or I'm doing this is where the person will be, and I line up that space. He could honestly do either one in that scenario, whichever was going to work better for him, because they were going to drive in a lane of traffic. Right. So, of course, his head is going to be right where I want it to be. I can set up there and wait for him to get there.
Right.
It's a doable thing.
One of the other big things that I had read in I can't remember the name of the book, but it was very, I don't know, it was well done as well. But did you know that JFK had a terrible back?
Yeah, I think it had something to do with an injury when he was a kid, wasn't it?
But a terrible, I don't know for sure how he got it.
Needs to take medications.
He would wear a humongous splint up his back to alleviate some of the back pain. And one of the biggest parts of the conspiracy is his movements and the way that he was moving.
Oh, you're saying that it looked so weird the way that he moved. No normal human would move that way.
Yeah, one of the big reasons that everybody kind of talks about how it looks like he was shot from the front because he flew back.
Right.
And in this book, they kind of spelled out what this splint was.
If I'm remembering the movie, back and to the left. Back. And is Costner. Costner did this over and over again.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of my angles. I had the Zapruder
Oh, don't
film,
build it. Just remember Kevin Costner. Put his face in your heart, and then you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it feels better with him. No, but he wore this back splint, this big splint on his body. And what's weird is when you see his movements like it was. But imagine if you had your back splinted up so much, you know kind of how he moves really quickly and he's like a board?
Yeah, he looks like he doesn't bend.
Does anybody not? I don't know anyone that knows that he wore a splint pretty much every time he was in public. That's a little bit different. That's another factor of which you're not thinking about. Why
make him look weird.
Slingshotting back. Well, he's in a splint. So if you just went forward, where's that thing going to push you? Spring loaded.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that's true, but you know, a lot of the other shenanigans with bullets and was the bullet switched, I don't disagree. They probably couldn't find the thing. It could be that simple too. We've got to close this up because you know what happens if we don't close it up? Russia's going to drop a nuke on us. We don't have a president until we finish this. This is the middle of the Cold War, and if we don't make a compelling story that makes it out to not be Russia assassinated our president, we will fire a nuke at them.
Well, not only that, the public opinion will say we have to fire a nuke at them.
How many wars has there been based on some kind of an incident? 9/11 is one that just kind of happened pretty darn recently. Buildings get knocked down. We've been told a narrative, and I'm not suggesting that's not accurate, but the narrative was Middle East, boom, we're in it to win it again.
Well, go to the really easy one, World War II. We were not going to get into World War II. We were ready to sell arms. We were ready to back people up financially. We were ready to do all of those things, just like we did in World War I for a long time.
Sure.
But then as soon as we get attacked and the public narrative changes from we are sitting on the sidelines to we have been black-eyed. Well, now everybody's all in, and it is no
Change
problem.
the car factories. We're making tanks. We're going to war.
Heck, they might not even had to ask anybody to make tanks. I'll bet you every single person would say, "Why are we making cars anymore? I want to make tanks."
Sure. The whole country jumped on board, and Nazis and Japan were numero uno. They're going down. But when you think of the JFK deal, it was so ingrained in the Cold War that there is an awfully compelling version of it to where, once again, if you sat the government in a little think tank and they say, we need to have an answer like today so that we don't go to war tomorrow, whether or not it was him or not, unless we're dropping nukes, we've got to fix this now.
This is better, yeah.
So let's find a bullet. Let's, we got to plant some evidence. We have to dial
any
this up
narrative
quick.
Is better now than nuclear war tomorrow.
Sure.
And even honestly, if you think about it, if I'm Russia and I'm watching this unfold in America, I'm concerned that they're going to think it's us. So maybe
we went to Russia for years and years and years and basically looked like a Russian spy is what he looked like.
So maybe we preemptively attack because we're afraid they're going to attack us first. So then America goes, I know that they'll think that we are, that they are, and let's finish it quick.
And I'm not even maybe it was a Russian spy. Maybe he was.
But sure. But is war worth being right?
That's what I'm saying. So if they were in a position where even if they thought that all of that's why they were following, that's why they were threatening him all the time. That's where all that stuff was coming from, because not only was he going to Russia, he was also going to visit Castro and things like that. He was public enemy number one anyway. But do you want to say that public enemy number one, we killed him, he was a spy, he killed our president, we killed him, but he was a lonesome dove crazy person? Or do you want to say it was the Russian government and go to World War III?
Right. In a time when we were still recovering. Ultimately, we were still recovering from World War II. Like, we had two of the major players in the world as far as economics go. Like, Germany had been taken out of the entire. That's the thing people don't remember about Germany during this time. Like they didn't just get beat and they were like, oh, we're beat, we're done, and whatever the world needs, we'll kind of deal with. They were still having insurrections. They were still having battles and things within their own, new government of who should be in charge and whether or not it wasn't like they lost World War II and went, sorry, we'll do whatever the world says. Like there were still people that believed in what, Hitler spoke about. There were still people that believed in,
Well, he had quite the brainwashing campaign to do it. I mean,
it was on purpose.
I tell you, when I listened to some of the child approaches that they had on how they took over the schools and
You're talking about the youth?
Yeah, I mean, what kind of a sick and twisted dude. It's kind of insane. You start at step one and you change the whole youth and the way they're being educated and how they're extreme nationalists now, and you give them everything they want. You change in the schools that they're all PE. They're the best of everything. Don't listen to your parents. And within years, they just change the whole entire dynamics of the country.
It's the smart way to go about it. If your goal is not short-term, but your goal is long-term, like we are creating a country of people who can fight and win wars and has national pride, you do it everywhere. You don't do it just like on the television here and there like he did. You do it in the schools. You do it in the supermarkets. You do it everywhere you can.
I don't think they would have even been able to do what they were doing without brainwashing the youth, step one.
Yeah, it creates an entire next generation that is no questions asked. We're all in.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. So you ask, why am I into conspiracy theories? You can see it's a mind teaser. You just go round and round and round and round with facts and history and fun stuff. And I think that's my fiction. I enjoy that. That's my version of fiction that is much more enjoyable than fantasy worlds and crazy stuff.
But the implications of your fictions are so much more dangerous. Like,
sure.
It's one thing to talk about, like, was it Game of Thrones, where you got dragons and you watch intrigue and all that kind of stuff, but none of it's real. And so who cares ultimately who became the king of Westeros?
I did.
Well, you did, but at the end of the day, you didn't start any riots over it.
No.
But if you sit there and you start a situation where a conspiracy can truly change a populace's belief on how something occurred, like you can cause some massive, like, true economic problems. Like I don't think the economy suffered at all when the Targaryens didn't take the throne the way that they thought they would. Like,
sure,
nothing happened.
Yeah, I mean, fantasy meets conspiracy. That's one of the most interesting things about the QAnon situation in the last election. I don't really care to talk about politics and whatnot, but at a conspiracy theory level, I had a compelling thought with the whole process. I went down through the QAnon mindset. I went down it just like I do every conspiracy. I like to hear it all.
Got to test the water.
I like to know what it's all about. But when I all came pushed to be, when you really think about the essence of what QAnon was standing for is the elites are taking over everyone. This is going to be the method at which they do it. This is step one towards that structure. And it's kind of interesting to me. It's much more in-depth, of course. We've got many levels of nasty, nasty things
and
politicians are
there's
supposedly
lizard
doing.
People.
Yeah, it's devil worshiper. I mean, it is like very, very crazy. But what I find also compelling is that if you are into believing, which, not gonna lie, when I'm in the learning mode,
it tickles your happy.
I get a little excited. I'm like, am I learning something that no one else knows? Maybe I do need to read more.
I think that's it. Maybe we just stop it right there. That might be it. That's the entire thing. I know something that someone else doesn't know.
I don't know. I don't. It's not like that as much as I'm like. It's that I didn't know. I didn't know this could even be possible. And I like the whoa, and where it goes. But when you think about that whole level, and the point I was going to make with QAnon is we don't have to get into all the pieces of it. But if you're willing to connect every single dot known to man to have, the JFK connection into the whatever, all the way to the nowadays that he's still alive and blah, blah, blah. If you're a thumper, you know what I'm talking about. And then how are you not also willing to think that maybe, just maybe, it's foreign governments putting in tons of propaganda into our media so that you think that your government sucks.
Well, and the hard thing is that part is the definitely proven part.
And that part is, that's what I mean, though. That part is most definitely happening. Now, whether or not you want to pair the QAnon beliefs with foreign players, I don't know. It just seems like you're connecting these dots. Why don't you connect these dots too and go, maybe it's not completely true.
I'm being played by a person that actually would benefit a lot to this play.
But it's kind of I don't know if it's like doing word puzzles, but it's connections with history. It's connections with, I really, really like the fictional nonfiction piece of conspiracies where you can kind of,
I will say this. I like conspiracies, but I like them as fiction. Like, because I think for the most part, when I hear a conspiracy, I immediately think this is BS. Like, that's my knee jerk is this is not right. But I do like to explore it. I like to know, like, well, what does that mean? But I like it in a very fictional way. Like, I would read a book. I enjoy, in fact, books and stories where they take the story as known in history and just turn it sideways a little bit. Like the story that I think it was Dan Brown that wrote about the Da Vinci Code. Like, it takes normal, understood, standardized history that the world knows and operates under, and then says, but what if this one part was not right? And now what if we just change enough of the other facts throughout there, or at least call into question some of the facts that we think we know? And it's a really good story. If you're just looking for a fun conspiracy book to read, it's still great.
Yeah, Da Vinci, I mean, that's a really good example of something a little lighter for sure. I mean, well, I don't know that topic's exactly light.
It's pretty heavy.
I don't know if that's the right adjective, but that's a good example. It's, I like that stuff. I like things that kind of tie in with history and kind of question what you might know.
The whole geopolitical world is now maybe not quite what I thought it was.
Yeah, it's like it's insanely deep and complicated, and if you don't have an extreme context, it doesn't really even hit you. And then if you have a lot of context, you're like, are you getting me?
It's the crazy part though, because I that book specifically, I read with a person who knows that history, like knows Bible history and knows like early church history really well, and he was like laughing at the book. And I'm like,
really?
Whoa. This could be real. He goes, no, it's not. You'd have to ignore, and he lists off like 5 things that are very well known to like history majors and stuff. You'd have to ignore like these 5 things for that to even be plausible. And I'm like, oh. So I only knew just enough to be enticed by it, but not enough to be like, nuh-uh.
Yeah, to further your point, that's a really good example of the misinformation world right now that we're living in and how it's kind of juggling. Joe Rogan did an interview, and you know me and my views on climate change and your views on climate change and how it all works. We don't have to get into that, maybe another time. But what I thought was really interesting on just message delivery, right? Mm-hmm. Joe Rogan interviews a dude that writes a book that basically saying, not the climate change, the crock of, whatever, but what it is maybe not as much our fault. Here's a bunch of facts that are saying the climate's changing anyway. That's the moral of the story. Next guy he interviews the very next session is a guy from like Texas A&M. He's a scientist, and his one goal, apparently he listened to that podcast and he was really fired up about it. And he made a lot of compelling points from like the exact other side of it. Mm-hmm. And I could see where Joe Rogan would maybe not want to always have to have this and then the antagonist, who's the other side of the fence back to back every single time. But that was probably the first time that I've really listened to something back to back and was like, you might have to do it this way.
Yeah.
Because it was...
Well, it's like listening to a debate, but
in a better way.
Also not.
Yeah. It was... Unfortunately, what it should have been is maybe one guy goes, next guy goes, next time they're both on. But I don't know that you could really put 2 muzzles on guys that are extremely passionate. But for a listener, maybe you just switch the order on who gets to go first, or it's a simple like dice roll or something, and you make it known of what you're going to do, so it doesn't seem as biased.
There are debate rules, and you can take a debate rule and just run an actual debate. But the question is that what he wants to do? Because debates, you could come up with an answer. But then, and I think the whole conspiracy world is we're not ever trying to come up with an answer. We're trying to make sure the question...
It's an impossible answer is the point.
Well, I think that the point is I want to make sure that you're just questioning everything. I mean, I think about the X-Files, like question everything. Like that's the meat of it. Like, I don't need you to know. I need you to question what you think you know. And that already makes you feel more enlightened.
Yeah, I see what you mean by that. But you think of those 2 people when they're talking back and forth, and then I'm leaving that going, wow, there's a lot of compelling points to this, and I don't really know that you 2 disagree per se. You kind of take the research in a different way. You're thinking of the outcomes in different ways. But I don't know that as a listener, you don't feel a little bit more like you get the whole thing rather than just one side. But I don't know. That's a lot of pressure. I mean, you got Elon Musk just bought a mega shareholder with Twitter. I mean, is that what he wants to open the door to? People more free speech and thing? You think he'll actually accomplish that and maybe keep things open? Or what do you think is going to happen there?
You're talking specifically with Musk?
Yeah. What did he buy Twitter for? What was the point?
Oh, man.
I mean, I guess he didn't buy Twitter, but when you're a massive shareholder, I don't know that you kind of can't change some things.
Yeah, I don't know. He's one of those characters that I can't quite put my hand on, because the reasons he can do things and the reasons he does do things seem everything as simple as I wanted to, but all the way as complex as, because I cannot believe that someone that smart just does something because they want to. I think there's a deeper game, the conspiracy game.
Yeah,
he's thinking of something that he wants to do in Twitter.
Do you think it is as simple as, I've heard Elon speak millions of times. I'm always listening and reading people that are smarter than myself. He likes Twitter. He doesn't do much other social media.
Right.
Do you think he literally spent all that money because he's insanely rich and he just wants to use Twitter how he wants to?
I don't know. We've talked about it before.
He's like, I just want to tweet something. Why can't I make a joke?
Well, he made PayPal because he just wanted to be able to like do money the way he thought it should be done. I mean, maybe it's that simple. I want to be able to use Twitter the way I think it should be done. I think it should be a democratic, fully like you speak your mind and people can ignore it or whatever. And he just wants that to be the truth. And so I will buy the shares necessary to make that truth.
If you got all the money in the world, I mean, you could change a lot of things.
It's true. But I think the question that I had when I read his post about the whole, like, democracy that hinge pins around, free speech. Anyone that says something like that has something they desire to say but can't, or feel like they aren't allowed to.
Well, imagine being a very influential person. Imagine having tons and tons of money.
I can't.
Imagine trying to send someone to space. Imagine making spaceships that can now come there, come back, electric vehicles, shingles, all these things that do solar energy. You're trying to build a new infrastructure in the entire world, and then you can't simply put out a tweet that says, I kind of like Dogecoin. Like, right. You have all the freedom in the entire world, and you mean to tell me that
you
I can't
have the freedom
write
to
this
leave
sentence?
the world? Like you...
Yeah. So is it, if you have enough money, you just say, no, I'm gonna show you I have a big stick, and I'm gonna use it.
Yeah, here's $9 billion of it.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know. Maybe it's that simple.
$9 billion for a sentence.
Exactly. Like, that's a craziness.
I don't even know. Is that what he spent? Is that what you read?
I believe so. Yeah. Like, he's like 9.2 billion or something to buy the shares necessary to be the number one stockholder. It was something extreme. So yeah, is the reason just for vanity? Is the reason just because, well, and in all honesty, 9 billion to me is like, I can't believe that. But I think
I would swim in it. Like, I think I would,
let's cash
Donald
out.
Duck or whatever
yeah, Scrooge McDuck.
I think I would make a pool of money if I had that much money.
But he kind of did. Like, he made his own pool. He's like, I have to spend this 9 point whatever billion dollars anyway. It's going to be in the market. I can't take it out. So I'm just going to move it to this.
I wonder if that's like a tax write-off, like a business expense. So you'd have to pair it up in a business thing, right? So if you spend the money, you spent it on what? So what's the venture?
I mean, you have to imagine, Elon Musk has never taken I'm going to say never. I don't think that's absolutely true, but he hasn't been paid by Tesla. He's not a paid employee. That's why he doesn't have many taxes, because he's not making an income that's of any substantial amount.
But he might be doing stock option stuff where he gets stocks.
He's absolutely doing that. So if he's getting paid through stocks, but he can't really cash out the stocks, because once he does, he gets massive tax penalties for that. Well, then you're living in a fake world. You're living in, if I have $9 billion in Tesla, if I have $9 billion in Amazon, or I have $9 billion in Twitter, it is what it is. So when I move it from one to the other, and we'll say a largely equal thing, did he really spend the money?
You're right. So literally, maybe he just transferred some funds to be able to make a tweet.
Well, exactly. And in all reality, that's all that's happening in most of the things. Like, you think about a savings account that you have, and you take the money out of that savings account at X bank, and you decide, I'm just going to move it over to Y bank. You didn't spend the money. You didn't buy anything with the money. You just put the money from one bank to another bank. And that's all he's done. He's taken the money from whatever bank it was in, which would be whatever stocks he previously owned, and he bought other stocks with it. It's still in the bank. He's not moved it.
It's all imaginary.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like buying a house. It's completely imaginary money. The situation that lays out right now for the housing market drives me absolutely nuts, because you know how many conversations I've had with people my age or a little bit older buying homes. They all own a home, and they're like, should I sell this home and get the most amount of money possible out of my house and then go buy one?
Yeah.
And then everyone has to weigh this in. And then they're like, okay, well, if I buy that house at X, well, quite frankly, it's going to be nearly the exact same payment as I would have had. So why don't I just do that? And then my house kind of sort of, I just got gifted 150 grand. I mean, it literally sounds like monopoly money all the time.
Well, I know that everyone sees me rolling my eyes. Like, I think about that because I had the exact same thing. We bought our home in the market downfall. Like 2008, market dives. We bought our home then. Our home value was like super, super low. Like, it's very, very low. Like, laughably low. And now we've quadrupled, maybe 5x'd the value of the property. So once I do that, boom, technically, as far as funds go, I have 5x the money that I did before, which is great. Like, that's exactly what you're talking about. Boom, I did it. I did everything. But I still have to live somewhere.
Yeah, and then when you buy something, what's going to happen?
I'm buying something at the exact same price that I sold for.
Yeah, zero money that you get to touch again. The ultimate scam of pretending that you have money. No. It's like trading cards. You trade this house to move to this house, but you still don't get any money. It's just a transfer of a new payment and a new setup.
But I can't believe that everybody who has always said, having a house is an investment, that can't be wrong. So who's getting the benefit of that investment? It's not me.
Your kids will be the only ones. If you paid off that home by the time you die, then they'll sell your house because they don't want to live there because you smell bad and they don't really care about it. And they'll sell it and then they'll get the money. But unfortunately, the price of homes will be so high at that point in time that they may or may not really get any equity out of it, because they'll probably use it to buy a different piece of property or something, because some tax guy will be like, you know what you should do? You should roll that into a new property so that you don't lose any value. And then yet again, no one really made any money. We all just pretend and we hand around deeds.
It's the bank. The bank makes the money.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about, I think back in the day, there was probably all the bankers got together and said, you know what? We don't sell a product. We should sell homes.
They did do this. You know that, right?
No, really?
Yes. Like, the banks seriously, they got, I don't know whether it got together like conspiracy world, but the idea was like, we can only loan money to like companies or people that are trying to start money. We need to expand the number of people and the type of people that need loans.
I gotta read this book. What'd you read this in? I gotta get in there.
Yeah, if I could tell you, I'd hand it to you right now. But yeah, like, that's the idea. We need to expand the what's that called? Our buyer pool. Our buyer pool is too small. We need to expand it by creating the need for, well, property would be expensive.
Sure.
Automobiles would be expensive.
So I have this, I have a buddy that he kind of runs a company, and a buying group decided to buy his company. Okay. So this is just going to double down on monopoly money. So this company is international, and they are trying to buy up all of the entities in the United States that do this particular task. Okay. So basically buy up the industry in the U.S. So what he does is he learns how to broker the deal, because brokers get X percentage, and he didn't really want to pay out that percentage. They wanted more value for the sale of their own company.
Okay.
So he learns how to broker the deal. They end up buying it through him with his brokerage, contracting, and the whole deal. And they want him to stay on as CEO of the current company he's in. And then they want to put him in charge to broker the deals to buy all the rest of the ones in the United States.
Okay, so he's put himself in the place to be the linchpin of this deal.
The U.S. connection, right? The crazy part is not that. That's great. Kudos to him. Amazing for him and opportunities for him and his family. But the point of this company is literally, they're a bunch of rich guys that make up a firm, and they have access to a certain amount of money from the bank. So $100 million is what they are able to have access to, or whatever that fee is, based on their rich guy assets. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what his job is to do is to take his $3 million business and go buy up more businesses to make the firm $100 million business. So he's going to go grab other companies, and whatever number that they can come up with a profit deal or the evaluation of the firm that really is the oversighting business owner. Mm-hmm. When it gets to $100 million, there's richer people that want to buy $100 million businesses. So if you think about this,
So he's basically gluing companies together to make a big enough company for the bigger fish to buy.
To make the big fish his level, then the big fish $100 million worth of assets or companies, and then they are going to sell it to a bigger fish that wants $100 million firms. And none of them spend any money. It's all loans from the bank, but yet none of the banks are paying anybody. So imagine if you buy this company for $3 million, $3 million was spent, but the rest of the money that occurred is all just interest payments to the bank. So the rich guys didn't pay $3 million. They have access to a line of credit that's X.
So the bank is paying that bank.
So that bank paid that bank, and really no one actually has any money except for the end user on the buyout. $3 million was spent, right? So they get their whatevers, but the rich guys still never paid any money. So when they get to be $100 million, they go over to the richer guy, and the richer guy uses his line of credit from his bank, and he buys that firm.
So then the firm below gets the $100 million from the bigger firm, and then they can get rid of all of their debts.
Yeah, so the guy at the bottom of the deal semi gets paid, but the rich the rich concept is buying with bank money. So really, who in the whole world has any money actually? The banks.
Right. So
the banks are the only ones that have money, and they're just all trading monopoly money.
Well, I mean, it's the idea to go back to the home buying thing. Like, people talk about how homes were so much cheaper when we were kids, but the interest rate was spectacular. Like, it was huge, like 18%, 20% on a home. But then when you do the math and the calculation, the home is basically the same price when you send it across a 30-year loan. Like, yeah, you were paying a lot more in interest then. That's why the home was so cheap. And well, now that the interest is so low, the homes are really, really expensive. The total cost of the home that you actually have to buy is about the same, made for inflation and everything. So it is, right to your original point, like, home buying as a actual investment is kind of a scam. Not to mention, I'm still paying taxes on my home every single year, and my water heater is my problem, and all those roof replacements are my problem. Like,
it'd be interesting if a better infrastructure of renting could be to where they weren't so equal. But unfortunately, home buying can still be beneficial if renting is just as expensive.
Well, right, because right now I'm spending less to mortgage my home than I would be if I lived in a similar style rental, just because of the great deal we got. But yeah, like, if renting was the cheaper option, of course that would be the right go.
But I would say, like, don't get it twisted. I wouldn't call it exactly a complete scam. I think the idea of what a home is going to do for a personal financial situation, that is the scam. The scam is that you're explaining it improperly. Whatever money you allocate towards your home is gone to you forever. You're going to move from home to home, and you're allocating a certain money out of your lifetime to go towards your home.
So you're talking cash flow over life.
Yeah, it's you are allocating a chunk of your money to sit in this house, and quite frankly, you have to have a place to live. So that money to you is gone. To me, that doesn't feel as much like an asset. It feels like my kids have a nice asset. It doesn't feel like I have an asset. So if you want more money for disposable income or buying things that you want, then you need to buy less house. If you're rolling it over from home to home and pretending that you have an asset, I don't know where you're going to live when you actually liquidate that asset, which makes it nearly not even an asset to me personally.
No, that's true. It does move it out of the box of assets, because assets are technically something that retains value. So they kind of are that, but it's not anything you can. It's like Elon Musk with all of his money in the stock exchange. I mean, it's there. He's worth X billion dollars, but if you really wanted to put the tax to it, he's actually worth X% less than that, because it would all be taxed.
Taxed to the hilt.
Right. So technically, he's not even worth the amount that he owns in the stock market, because he can't take that out.
The tax system is completely crazy, though. I think that everybody in the world should have to pay taxes with a check. And I think that it would be a flat rate across the board, 10%.
Oh, you mean if someone had to look at it and go...
It would change overnight. If taxes weren't automatically taken out of your check and everyone had to personally write a check to the state that they live in and the federal government, taxes would be divided in two with a snap of a finger. Because when you have to write a quarterly check, it makes you want to puke.
Well, it probably would also make you really interested in what we're spending our money on, because that's the money that I wrote a check for. I just
wrote you a check. Now, why are the potholes still here? Why is the mayor of my city making so much money? Why are all the things undone that are undone?
Why did I build an airplane that I think is a terrible airplane? we can't keep going like this. But there's a great mockumentary about the Bradley fighting vehicle. It's funny and it's tragic. That thing had been in
I got
development.
nothing. What
Research and development. So the M1 Bradley fighting vehicle that they use through like Iraq and Afghanistan and all those ones, it's an armored personnel carrier that is supposed to be like a really good troop transport and like offensive capable vehicle. They redesign that thing so many times. This one unit ends up costing like millions and millions and millions of dollars too much. It's overpriced. It's bloated in budget. It's all those sorts of things, but we still crank it out. Why do we crank it out? Because of all the brokenness on how the money is spent. But to your tax point, I wrote this, $20,000 check this year, and you bought what with it? A piece of crap M1 Bradley that doesn't even work the way it's supposed to work?
Yeah.
Well, now I'm interested in revoting. I don't want to vote like that anymore.
I'm telling you, it would change everything. It would change the way that everything was done. If it just didn't take automatic checks.
If you had to
automatic
write
payments.
a check, I think you would absolutely be more into voting.
Absolutely. That right there, that's another thing that would be a very big impact. If you could get everyone involved more in voting, imagine if you knew who the candidates were, much easier just because everyone wants to vote. So there's going to be more infrastructure built behind that. I want to know what's going to happen to this check. And right now, the check itself, that could be, in the conspiracy world, that could be literally, why don't we make these automatic? So then everybody kind of relaxes a little more. We'll take care of you.
They got me.
We'll take care of it for you.
This is an age-old conspiracy. Now we're just living in it.
They
got us. All right. Well, next time we'll have to talk about taxes and the conspiracy to take it out of your paycheck.
Don't tell them that. They're not going to listen. Taxes. Hey, thanks a lot for listening to the show today. We'll be back again next week. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Give us a comment. Give us a like. And, of course, subscribe with that little bell thing so that you know when we chit-chat again.